Hey Phil, thought I'd do something a little different this time around. Been wanting to do videos for a while, for a long time actually, uh, and these last 4 months, everybody's on doing the virtual thing on Skype and Zoom and FaceTime, all that. Uh, Getting around to that, never, haven't really done anything like that yet. But I have a friend in Chicago, John Battles, and who you might know. In fact, matter of fact, I've been forgetting to mention this to you. Uh, I remember you introduced me to a guy named Steve Zimmerman, and Small World. John Battles, and I think his brother Tom, God rest his soul, Tom Battles recently passed away. Anyway, their dad, I think he said worked with Zimmerman's dad. Anyway, they go way back. But anyway, I've been corresponding with John Battles, the former. Yeah, you probably remember Elvis from Hell from the Twilight Room around mid '80s. So John and I have been corresponding for a while, and he recently lost his brother, and I've been wanting to do these videos for a while anyway, uh, for various reasons. Not just because it's more personal, kind of like virtually hanging out if we can't hang out. A little bit more personal than reading an email or a letter, but also you know. So I started. So I sent him a couple of videos. Just kind of virtual hanging out, heartfelt. Wishing him well, all that. He's having a hard time right now, and so anyway, so I'm making you one of these videos too, and I've got like a 4 or 5 minute time limit on my video feature on my smartphone, so I'm gonna have to wrap this. This is part one here. I'm gonna wrap this up real quick. Gonna cut this short here in a minute, but yeah, I'm at work right now. It's about 8 p.m. on Thursday, July 16th, and it was great seeing you a couple weeks ago. Great hanging out, and it was really cool getting your text message last night too. So it's always thanks again for staying in touch. But yeah, talking about rock and roll is always cool. That's the main thing you and I have in common. The main thing I have had in common with most of my friends. And yeah, early being kids in the early '70s, and that's great. You mentioned the growing up on Dylan and early Stones, the Brian Jones era Stones, and my mom had a couple of Bob Dylan albums, and she was kind of a fan, not a big fan, but she was a major Stones fan. So I grew up on a lot of the early Stones too, the Brian Jones years. Matter of fact, I've probably told you this a million times if I've told you once. I may have forgotten, but my record collection actually started out from two hand-me-downs from my mom's collection: Rolling Stones Now and the Rolling Stones 12 by 5. The story behind that is she had both the mono and stereo copies of both of those albums, and so this was probably 1974, 75. I was a little kid, and so she gave me her. I mean, I already loved rock and roll. I already loved listening to all their records, and so my record collection started when I was 7 or 8, and my mom's the mono copies of 12 by 5 and the Rolling Stones Now, and then I don't know, a couple of years went by, and I started saving up my allowance to buy records. Most of the records I grew up on, of course, my mom had a lot of cool records, and my mom and stepdad, and so did my aunt. And so, but yeah, that was the early days of rock and roll, and it's so cool that you were, you know, in Iran and able to access a lot of that music. And once again, those I don't know if they were actually bootlegs or we called them bootlegs, but those cassettes you had were great. And yeah, I still remember those. The odd pairings of the seemingly random. On one side you got Rod Stewart, and the other side you got Frank Zappa. What kind of sense does that make? It seemed more random at the time, but really, I mean, in retrospect, it's